All right, now we're learning Parshat Kedoshim. We this is week we're having a double Torah reading, Acharei Mot and Kedoshim, and we pretty much went over the laws that are in Acharei Mot. Acharei Mot. It's called Acharei Mot. It says meaning after the death of Aaron's two sons, Nadav and Avihu, that they went into the holy of holies or the holy anyway. They went in improperly. So God's now telling the way the Kohanim can go properly into the Holy of Holies. And we went over that, all the laws of the Kohen, and then there's all these laws about forbidden sexual relationships. A person that can't have relations with his father's wife or with his own mother, even if it's not his father's wife. Let's say his father had relations with some strange lady. And then if it happens to be his mother and also his father's wife, then that's two crimes, and even three, because he can't have relations with a married woman. So there can be three crimes at one time. He has sexual relations with a married woman, and it's also his mother and also his father's wife. So that's three transgressions. So it's possible to have even more. So again, in the time of the temple, there was punishments for all these. And now all we have is that we know that God doesn't like it. It's very displeasing to God, which that's really the main thing. Oh, excuse me. And we learned that yesterday we spent a little bit of time talking about this beautiful explanation of the Ramban on Kedoshim Tiyu, that it's this, according to the Ramban, this is speaking about that a person must make himself holy even in permissible things. In other words, it's not so much what you do. Let's start that sentence over there. It's not only what you do, but how you do permissible things. That also is being warned here. In other words, you can do things that are totally permissible according to the Torah, but you can do it in a totally not human way. So that's when you have to make yourself holy, or not Jewish way. I don't know so much of a difference. A human. So in any case, you have to keep in mind all the time that you're a holy, the Jewish people are holy, just like God is holy. And he had different explanations of what this meant. It was very beautiful. We learned last time. And here we have from the Kli Yakar. Let me just say this here. And then I want to go to that book, Mitzvot Hashem, and go over the commandments that are in this week's Torah portion, Kedoshim, because there's a lot of them. There are, in my book, it's a little bit of a mistake. There are 48 commandments. I thought, here it says, anyway, that's how much, that's there really are. It says, you should say that you are holy. So it says, before the giving of the Torah, it already says, before God gave the Torah, he already said that you will be, right before the Torah was given, God said, you will be to me a nation of priests and a holy nation, Goy Kadosh. So the Jewish people are supposed to be holy, a holy nation. What does it mean, holy? That they are supposed to be like the Holy Temple. What's the Holy Temple? It was in the world, it was a temple, but it was totally devoted to the Creator. Everything that was there was exactly the way the Creator wants it. So that's what's hinted over here in the 10 Commandments. Like it says over in the Midrash, the 10 Commandments, therefore the holiness, God said you should be holy in order to endear to them the commandments, so that they should see that by means of the commandments, Jewish people are going to be holy. So this is a little bit different than what the Ramban was saying. Ramban was saying that this is talking about even things that you're already doing what is permissible. But you can do things that are permissible, but in a not holy way. And here the Kli Yakar is talking about more about being close to God. Like it says, Kedusha milter zutasihi. Don't think that holiness is a small thing. In other words, I'll do the commandments and that's it. He says, no, because God says, I am holy. Don't let it be small in your eyes to be like your creator. And every time you find, that's what it says, every time you find a person, people controlling themselves and holding themselves back from low desires, as that's where holiness can be found. Because the nature of a person is to go down, to make himself more, how do you say, closer to the creation than the creator. That's what it means. Okay, then he comes in with what the Ramban says, Kodesh atzmacha b'mutar lach. You should sanctify yourselves even in totally permissible things. So a holy, like a nazir, it says that the nazir is a person that he takes on himself a vow. He's not going to drink wine and he's going to abstain from defiling himself for an unpure, for a dead person. So in other words, he made it up in his mind to refrain from doing things that might get him into trouble. It's permissible to drink wine, but he took him. Also in Matan Torah, it says, don't come, before the Torah was given, it said that they had to separate themselves from marital relationships. Why? Because you have to know that this sometimes separating yourself makes you holy. And also here it says, don't come close to revealing to a forbidden sexual relation, not even to come close to it. Because that is what keeps a person, what says holy. Holy should be because I am holy. That's what this Dat Zakanium says. And then it says, don't come to do idol worship, etc., etc., because you should do things for the sake of heaven. You have to separate yourself from the idolaters. Okay, that is what it means holy, you should be holy. Now let's see some of the commandments. All right, a man and every person, his mother and his father should be afraid, and you should keep my Shabbatot and my Shabbat. Why, says Rashi, what's the connection between honoring your mother and father and keeping Shabbat? Why? To tell you that even though that your parents tell you, you're supposed to be fear your parents, but if your parents tell you to defile the Shabbat, as you have to tell them, I'm sorry, but you and me are also commanded to honor the Shabbat. So I can't go against God. And even more, God is the one that's telling me to honor you. If you tell me not to honor God, then I have no, why just apply it to not honoring him and the things you want. Maybe I won't honor God in the things that I want. If I'm not going to, namely, want the commandment to honor my parents. So I won't honor him in that commandment. So therefore it says you should honor your parents. How are you supposed to honor them? Don't contradict them. I'm sorry, what does it mean to have fear of your parents? More have fear of your parents. Don't sit in their place. Don't interrupt what they say. Don't contradict them. What is honor? Honor means you have to feed them, clothe them, give them a place to live, etc. Your parents. There's more details in this. I'd like to look in just one moment at some of the other commandments that are here, because it's going to take us a while in order to learn these. Okay, but we will go back. We'll go back to some of these, but let's just make a quick run through the commandments that are found in this week's Torah portion. There are 13 positive commandments and 35 negative commandments. What are they? And we're going to stop at one of them, especially the one, love your neighbor as yourself. Okay, here we have the positive commandment to fear your father and mother. Like it says, you should fear your parents. So negative commandment, don't go after idolatry. Like it says, al tifnu el ha'elilim. Do not go after idolatry. What does it mean? In speech, in thought, even to look at them is forbidden. To read their books, to ask them, how do you serve your gods, etc. You're not supposed to, unless you're a person that is, battling them, or you're trying to reveal the bad in them or something like that. But it's very dangerous, especially because these idolatry things. I mean, I have to admit that before I was religious, I read a lot of these books, and they are very convincing and luring. There are all sorts of promises, and the people usually that write these books, there's all these Eastern religions and not them in Christianity and all these things. The people who write them are very, very convinced themselves, and they're also very, very convincing. And idolatry is a very strong thing. I mean, we have the Jews who heard the Torah, they saw God take them out, and just 40 days later they worshiped the golden calf. And it says in the first temple that like for 250 years, the 10 tribes worshipped to golden calves, and there were other idols also. There's a lot of power and pleasure involved in idolatry. You have to keep away from it. Negative commandment: don't even make idols for somebody else. I think we did this yesterday. Don't even make idols for someone else. What happened? Oh, next page. Huh. All right, now we have a few agricultural laws. You have to leave what's called payah. If you are a farmer, the edges of your fields, the corners of your fields, usually fields are square, at least somewhat. So you're supposed to leave the four corners of your fields for the poor as much as you want. Positive commandment: you should leave the negative commandment, don't cut it. Now, positive commandment, leave it for the poor people. And those allow the poor people to eat it, to come into your field and eat. Negative commandment: it's called leket. Leket kitzurcha, don't play. And positive commandment: to leave the leket for the poor people. What is leket? Leket, this is when you harvest your grains, that which falls down from the sickle or from your hand. You have to leave it there. This is only if the small amount falls down. A small amount falls out of your hand if there's 2 stalks, but if there's 3 stalks, then you can take it for yourself. But you have to leave it. If it's 2 stalks, you have to leave it for the poor to come and gather. Negative commandment: don't take olalot. And positive commandment: to leave the olalot for the poor people. What is olalot? Olalot are small clusters of grapes that fall down. You have to leave them there for the poor. Negative commandment: don't take parrot. And a positive commandment: to leave the parrot for the poor people. What is parrot? Parrot are 1 or 2 like grains or gargarim, 1 or 2 grains like or grapes that fall down when you're gathering up the grapes on the ground. Those you have to leave for the poor people. We're going through the commandments in this week's Torah portion. Agricultural. Okay, now we're getting into commandments. Those were commandments between you and your fellow man, because you have to leave this parrot and payah and leket for the poor. So that's already. Yeah, can you do it? I don't know if they do this anymore. I don't think, maybe in Israel, you can't. I don't think, first of all, people are that poor as they used to be. But technically, if there's a farmer and he has fields that the poor people can gather it up, I don't think it's worth their money now to go and gather it up. You stand on a corner and you collect, 10 shekels, you can buy a whole bag of flour for 10 shekels. So then you couldn't. And the same thing with grapes. Pretty much a poor person goes into any fruit store in Israel, and he can say, "Listen, I'm poor. Can you give me some grapes?" They'll give him grapes. I don't think so. I don't think that people actually do this anymore from necessity. But according to the Torah, the law still applies. The law is still a law, and it certainly does still apply. It's not like those laws that depend on the time of the temple, etc. All right, so those are agricultural laws to help your fellow man. Next, don't steal things or money from other people. That's what it says in the 10 Commandments, not to steal. It's talking about kidnapping. You would never know it if it wasn't for the rabbis telling you. Here is the commandment of not stealing money or things for people. Even if it's worth more than a pruta. A pruta is, I don't know, a shekel or something, maybe less. That's forbidden from the Torah, but in fact, it's forbidden to steal anything from anybody, even if it's the smallest amount. It's forbidden to steal anything, or in a way of joke. You can't joke around or just borrow things and give them back without the person's knowledge. You're not allowed to do that. It's called stealing. Next commandment, negative commandment, not to deny a loan. Let's say that's not good. Not to deny a loan, not to borrow money and to refuse to pay it back. That's what it means. In other words, you take money and you say, I didn't loan it. I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't borrow it. Here, let's say, you know that somebody, he lost you borrowed $100 from someone and you wrote it down on IOU and you saw the IOU fell from the guy's pocket. And now when he comes to get the money, he says, where's the $100 you owe me? I don't know what you're talking about. He says, remember you wrote, I don't remember anything like that. That's forbidden. You're not allowed to do that. A loan or a picadon. Let's say somebody leaves it by yours. Listen, I'm leaving you my car by your house for a few weeks. I'm going on a trip. I'll come back and get it. Is that okay? Sure. My friend comes back. Where's my car? Car? I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have a car. Yeah, but you want to buy a car? No, I left my car by your house. Remember? No, I don't remember anything like that. I don't. You left the car by me. You're not allowed to do that. Person leaves something by you, it's forbidden from God. It might be that you'll succeed, but it's a sin. Next, don't take a false oath concerning money. Right? I swear that you never loan me money. It's forbidden. If they catch you, then a person has to pay the money back, and he has to pay back also on the loan. He has to pay back a fifth. It says also Karen v'chamesh. And he has to bring a sacrifice. In the time of the temple, there was what was called an asham. Especially if you take God's name. That's a different one. Here, this is that you can't take a shavuos bitui, an oath, and take God's name in it for a lie. Now, there's all sorts of different types of shavuos bitui. For instance, a person swears on things that are foolish, right? I swear that the moon is made out of green cheese. Right? I swear that I will eat a automobile. I ate a car yesterday, a full truck. I ate a truck. Right? I can eat these are things. It's forbidden to make stupid and false vows. But the fact is that nowadays we don't make vows at all because it's very, very dangerous to take God's name in a vow. That's what it says. So therefore, if you say, okay, I'll meet you tomorrow, such you're supposed to say, well, this is not a vow, or bli neder. I'll try to meet you. As you have to keep your word. A man is only worth his word. Negative commandment, not to force people, right? Don't hold back his money or force him to give it to you, something like that from negative commandment. Don't steal from here we're talking about gonev. What is this? No, we'll get to gonev. Okay. Gozel means to steal someone by force in front of him. You steal from the person with the person's knowledge, and he's just afraid of you. You pull out a gun, whatever. That's called gazela. Next, you're not allowed to withhold withhold wages from a worker. Lo talin pu'ulat sachir itcha. What's it supposed to be? You're supposed to pay, if there's no agreement between you, you're supposed to pay a person every single day, unless there's an agreement between you. But you're supposed to not even delay the wages until the next day. You're not supposed to hold them with you overnight. Negative commandment. You're not allowed to curse a person in Israel. Lo tekalel cheresh. It says you should not curse a deaf person, and this is referring to anyone. That what it says, a deaf person, it means that even a deaf person, not to curse, even if he can't hear you cursing him, but you're not allowed to curse someone, especially with the name of God. You're not supposed to. Every day he calls it this time. Negative commandment. You're not allowed to trip up your friend, to make him stumble. Don't make a stumbling block. What does it mean? Giving a person false or I say damaging advice. Damaging advice. Right? I'm telling you, the best thing to do now, you want to make money, invest all your money in horse and buggies. It's going to come back 100%, right? And in fact, my brother happens to sell these things, right? See this car? This is the best car in the world. You should buy it. And it's a terrible car. You know that it's wrong. Tripping people up, giving them bad advice. Negative commandment. Not to be a dishonest judge. A judge must be careful to find the innocent and the guilty, not the other way around. Also, and this is also the category of not to delay judgment. Not to delay judgment. Or that the judge can talk too much in order to cause pain to one of the litigants. Right? Aren't you ashamed that this man is an orphan? He didn't know. The person is guilty. What are you trying to make the man ashamed for, just because this person has to be an orphan? He killed his parents. The poor guy's an orphan. Leave him alone. You know, you have to find justice in the individual case itself. Don't make crooked judgments. That, I mean, in one way, that's the worst thing that there could possibly be. Because if there's, in our prayers, in the Shemona Esrei prayer, it's the only prayer of the prayers that we say, God, remove from us moaning and misery. Yagon v'anacha. Misery and moaning. As when we say, God, please heal the sick and remove from us misery. God, please bring Mashiach and remove from us misery. We don't say. The only one we say, God, please remove from us misery and mourning is, please, God, give us good judges. Because if the judges are bad, then everything is bad. A person can be healthy and successful and intelligent and everything. And you have a bad judge. Right? So your next door neighbor says, he called me he called me a not nice name. He called me stupid. Oh, you called him stupid? Then give him all of your money and we're putting you in jail for 15. That's what they used to do in communist Russia. A person had money. They go in front of a judge. Guilty. Everyone was guilty. Everyone went to Siberia. Terrible judges. Worst thing in the world. Negative commandment. Negative commandment. Not to refrain from giving honor I'm sorry. Again, not to show preference in judgment to an important person. You're a judge, comes in front of you a very important person, multimillionaire. He runs the whole city. Everybody knows him. He's the one that put you into office, did you all sorts of favors. Who is he against? Some simple guy, a shop owner, that the shop owner says, listen, he came into my store and he stole my money right? So you say to yourself, listen, I don't want to get into trouble with this big person. You know what? I'll find the big guy innocent, and I'll slip the poor person some money from my own money. I'll pay him back on my own. You shouldn't do that. If a person is guilty, even though he happens to be powerful and rich and etc., it doesn't make any difference. You should not show him any preference in judgment just because of who he is, but rather relating only to the case in front of you. All these are commandments that are in this week's Torah portion, KEDOSHIM. Positive commandment, to make honest judgments. In other words, it's pretty much the same thing, but it's a different sort of an aspect. The first one is saying not to make crooked judgments. That was a negative commandment, not to make crooked judgments, not to show favoritism in judgment. And now a positive commandment, that you must judge honestly. Listen to everyone, what they have to say. You have to also know all of the laws and what's involved. Also in this is also another thing, that if you're not a judge in a judgment case, just a normal person, and you hear something bad about someone, you're supposed to always judge them to merit excuses. We're going to get to this in a moment also. Make excuses for other people. He stole money, right? I'm not a judge. I'm not judging the case. I heard that Shmerel stole money from somebody. So I say, listen, he probably really needed it. Or maybe you just think you saw him steal money. Maybe he just took his own money back. Maybe he wasn't really stealing. Maybe the other person stole from him and he was just getting the money back. Maybe he was really angry. Maybe he was drunk. Who knows? Maybe he didn't really see Shmerel. Maybe it was somebody that looked like Shmerel. And there's always try to judge other people to the side of merit. How can you learn how to do that? Judging somebody is very difficult. Well, it's very easy. Just look at yourself. If somebody, when you do something bad, you make up a million excuses why it wasn't a bad thing, right? It was my background. It was this. You don't understand me. I was under pressure. I was this. Those same excuses make up for others. We'll get to that in a moment. Negative commandment. Don't say things to spread around negative things that people told you about someone. Let's say this in a different way. Let me just translate the words. Don't tell to your friend negative things that someone said about him. Don't go to Joe and say, Joe, what you know what Shmerel just said about you? I don't believe it. He's telling him, right? This makes Joe hate Shmerel. That's called going rachil. You want to say something to somebody, go back to Shmerel and say, listen, don't say things like that about people. That's lashon hora. And we're going to get to lashon hora in a moment. Okay, this idea of going rachil, it includes in it a lot of details, especially like this thing about lashon hora that we said. It's a whole wonderful book written by the Chafetz Chaim, by Reb Meir Cohen, and he's called the Chafetz Chaim. He's called after this book, and it's talking about what are the different laws of how to avoid saying negative things about people. It's a negative commandment. Don't say things. Don't tell people negative things that were said about them, even though the other person is saying the truth. It says this destroys the world. Why? Because it makes people want to hate each other. Perfect example of this is the news, right? The news, the media, especially nowadays in America, right? They just love to find somebody, but it was general all the time, press, the news, to say bad things about people, to bring bad news about people, to suspect people, to hate people, right? One of the worst things there can be. There's no bigger sin than this, so that it says that this was, to speaking bad things about your friend, says this was really what the reason that the second temple was destroyed. That's lashon hora. Even if you're saying true things about a person, then there's what's called motzi shemra. Motzi Shemra means that you say lies about other people, right? Lies about other people. You spread around things that are simply not false in order to encourage everyone to hate someone else. Then there's what's called avak lashon hora, of like the dust of lashon hora. You don't say that Shmuel is an evil person. You don't go around and telling everybody Shmuel is a liar and he's a cheater. You don't do that. But what you do is say, listen, do me a favor, don't ask me about Shmuel. I know things that I don't think you'll want to know what they are, but you don't say what they are. This already includes everybody, right? Every time they say, even with your nose, you're not supposed to do it. Somebody says, you know something about Shmuel? You go, like that. In other words, it's implied that there's something, you're implying something bad. You're implying damaging another person's reputation. Okay, this is very long. It says that if you remember, that was 2 weeks ago. We said that was the whole reason that there was the plague of Tzorat, of the Metzora, because that's what that was a punishment for people saying Lashon Hara, what's called evil speech, damaging speech. That's what Miriam, the case of Miriam, why Miriam, she was punished because she just said sort of negative things about Moses, even though they were true. So it was punished. So this is very, very important, what you do with your mouth, right? Speaking. You have to watch your speech. A negative commandment, not to refrain from saving your friend if he's in danger. Like it says, Al tamod al damrecha. Also with money, you see someone is coming to take his money or whatever, person is in danger, you have to try to save him. Positive commandment. Well, this here is the negative commandment, is not to hold yourself back, because that's the language. Lo ta'amod al damrecha. Don't stand by on your brother's blood. Negative commandment, not to hate anyone in your heart. If you hate somebody and you have a reason for hating them, go to them and tell them. Go to them and tell them, I want you to know that I hate you for what you did. It's a terrible thing. Usually when people hate each other, they keep it to themselves. I'll get them one day, right? Don't let your enemies know you hate them. You butter up to the person or like you, but really, in fact, in your hate, you hate the person in your heart. This was really the reason why the temple was destroyed. Not only because they took their hatred out from their vocally, but also because it was in their heart. People hated each other in their heart. Very, very severe. Next, if you see someone doing a sin, you're supposed to reprove them. If you see someone doing something wrong, you're supposed to tell them in private, in a proper way, in a loving way, that you really want to improve the other person. That's what next commandment. Don't do it in public. Don't shame someone by telling everybody their faults in public. Take the person aside and tell them what you think they should do. You could be wrong also. Negative commandment. Just one moment. I'm giving a class. You call every day the same time. I'm giving a class now, 4 o'clock. Call me up, please. Negative commandment, not to take revenge from your friend. Like it says, lo takum, don't take revenge. I told you the story about my wife's friend with her 2 grandsons, right? That one of them took the other one's bicycle, and the one who got his bicycle, the smaller one, said, I'm going to get you back. And his mother said to him, you're not allowed to do that because it says in the Torah, you're not allowed to. And the boy went away, and a couple of minutes later, he came back. He was 3 years old. And he said, wow, the Torah is really hard, isn't it? The Torah is really difficult. In other words, he felt in his heart this burning desire to take revenge. He took his, but he knew the Torah says you can't, so he had to take the desire away. But he was, on the other hand, he wanted to take revenge, but the Torah says you can't. So he has to forget it. But on the other hand, he wants to take revenge. So he came to his grandmother and said, wow, the Torah is really hard. It's making me have this tremendous inner battle. Negative commandment. Don't take revenge, and don't hold a grudge. The Rashi brings the example, and he says, what does it mean take revenge? That you go and ask your next door neighbor, can you do me a favor and lend me your hammer? And the friend says, no, I'm not going to give you my hammer. Get lost. Then the next day, so what do you have to do? You have to go buy a hammer. We go without a hammer. The next day, your next door neighbor comes to you and says, excuse me, can you loan me a hammer? A hammer? I just asked you, yeah, my hammer broke. What am I going to do? Okay, now the ball is in your court. What are you going to do? So it says you have three choices. What are you supposed to do? Say yes. Give him the hammer. Give him the hammer. If you want to, you can take a collateral. I don't want you to break my hammer like you did yours. I want you to leave me a deposit. $20. I'll give it back to you as soon as you give me my. That's 100% permissible. Write me a note. You're taking my hammer. You're going to give it back, and 100% permissible. That's you can do. What shouldn't you do? Don't say, I see you have a short memory, huh? Yesterday, I wanted your hammer. You didn't get, well, now feel it yourself. Feel today how I felt yesterday. You didn't give me the hammer. Now you feel it. I'm not going to give you my hammer like you didn't. That's called revenge. You're not allowed to do that. Revenge. What is holding a grudge? Holding a grudge means you say, I'll let you have the hammer. I'm not an evil person like you, a stingy, how do you say, a stingy Russia, an evil person like you are. Oh, shalom. That's called holding a grudge. This is that's two negative commandments. You're not allowed to take revenge. In other words, saying, I'm not giving you my hammer, just like you did to me yesterday. Revenge, sweet revenge, forbidden. Or to say, yes, okay, take the hammer. I'm not like you, an evil person. That means I'm holding a grudge. I really hate the person I'm going to give. Positive commandment. Here we go. Love every person like yourself. Like it says, after the Recha Kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. Therefore, you have to take care of a person's physical things just like your own. A person that has that enjoys the shame of his friend, it says he has no place in the world to come. This is bringing peace between man and his friend. This is everywhere, male, female, and whether in the time of the Holy Temple or not Holy Temple, everywhere in the world. Now let's go back to our Torah portion and let's see a few comments on this commandment. Here we have the commandments. Here we have the olel. You have to leave the parts. You have to leave over some grapes for the poor people. Here we've had olel. We had parrot before that. And the leket. We had leket. We had that you're supposed to leave the stalks behind. You're supposed to leave the olalos and the parrot. We said. There are little clusters we have to leave behind. Don't steal. Don't deny that you take a loan that you have. Don't lie one to the other. Don't take a false oath in my name because you're disgracing my name. Don't oshek. Don't force people. Don't steal. I mean, don't be a robber. Don't leave the wages of a worker until the morning. Don't curse another Jew, even if he's deaf and he can't hear you, in front of a blind person. Don't put a stumbling block on a person. And if there's a person that is asking you for advice, he doesn't know what to do, and you give him purposely false advice. Just now there died this guy. Just now, what is a couple of days ago, died. Bernie Madoff died. Bernie Madoff. And that's why his name is Madoff, because he made off with everybody's money. He took like $100 billion, something, stole people, wiped them out totally. Anyway, I have a couple of good stories about this, but that's the case. He gave people this terrible advice. Want to make money? Invest in my thing. In addition to all the other sins that he did, that he stole, that he held back. Okay, don't make false judgments. Don't give honor to a poor person or a great person. They say the poor person, poor guy is poor. I'll find him innocent, and then, just how can I take money away from him? He's poor. If he's guilty, so he's guilty. You also the rich person, the powerful person. Well, I can't go against him. He's going to take revenge on me. You're not supposed to. If at all you're afraid, you can say, listen, I can't judge this case because I'm afraid of this man. It says, don't go as a gossiper. Don't stand on the blood of your neighbor. In other words, if you see someone in danger, you have to help them. Don't hate your brother. Don't hate your brother in your heart. Rather, if you see him doing something wrong, you should reprove him. And don't bear sin. Don't bear his sin. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to this. Don't take revenge. It says, don't hold a grudge. Love your neighbor as yourself. Oh, that's what I wanted to get to. And we don't have much time, but let's see how much we can get to. Love your neighbor as yourself, says Rabbi Akiva, Zeh klal gadol b'Torah. This is a very major principle in the Torah. Loving others. And of course, the question is, how can this be a big principle in Torah? If you love your neighbor as yourself, it's going to make you do the Shabbat. It's going to keep you eating kosher. How can it possibly be? And also, what does it mean, loving your neighbor like yourself? What if you happen to be a masochist? You like it if people beat you up. So that means you can beat up other people because that's what you want to yourself. What does exactly it mean? So there's in a Maimar Chassidut that explains that it's essentially, it was expressed in a different way. Don't do to others what you wouldn't want them to do to you. They're also very unclear. What is this thing that no one would want done to them? Oh, I didn't turn this on. Can you hear me? Yeah, I think so, yeah. Doesn't make any difference. I forgot to turn. Okay. I think it works anyway. It says the one thing universally that no one wants done to them is for other people to see their faults. That's what everybody universally detests and hates, right? I'm willing, other things, some people don't mind it to get beaten up, to be this, but no one wants their faults to be revealed to others. That's the one thing. So if that's the thing that everybody detests, so you should do that to your friend also. Don't see his faults. Okay, I would like to do the Orach Chaim really, and there's a beautiful Kli Yakar over here that we can do, and I think we're going to have to do it tomorrow because we've finished the time. We finished our time. Here he says the Sforno, he says, you should love your friend what you would love if you were in his place. It was put yourself in his place, and according to his standards, that's how you should love him, to put yourself in his place. That's said in another way, you should not judge your friend until you get to his place. And my teacher told me the only person that really can do that is the Rebbe, because you can't really put yourself in the place of somebody else. This is also in the category of fearing God, namely what doing God's commandments, because in a way, this is one of the hardest commandments of all. All the other commandments are pretty much stable. You can sort of prepare yourself and, you can give charity and these other, but this loving your neighbors yourself, it sort of jumps up on you because people do things that are really detestable and they do it as a surprise. And all of a sudden, you have to just sort of have this general basic attitude toward others that is with you all the time, so that you're always positive to others, and you're not looking to take revenge or to protect yourself or things like that from other people, but rather you're trying to find the good in everyone else, like you try to find the good in yourself all the time. Okay, my friends, that's it for today. Let's tomorrow, God willing, we're going to go back to this at 3:00, and we're going to learn this law in a little bit more depth. I hope tomorrow morning there will be a class, but I have a little bit of a doubt if there will be, because I have this thing I have to do with my car. So we'll see how it pans out tomorrow. If there is no class, then like I say, I will put the class, and I hope I'll put it up even before, on the site. So you can look at the site and see the class. If you know how to go in, it's not very difficult. Go into the site and see the past classes. You can see the class. Everybody. Listen, all these commandments are referring, most of the commandments. The thing about not stealing and not lying, this is also a Jew and a non-Jew. You're not allowed to trick a non-Jew and to steal from him. But the commandment to love your neighbor, re'echa, love your friend as yourself, the actual commandment is only for a Jew to a Jew. That's the commandment. But as far as humanness goes, of course, you're supposed to love everyone. Of course, this is also a commandment that can't be measured. You can't measure, do I love the other person or don't? It's just telling you what to do in your heart. But essentially with a Jew, the idea is supposed to be that even if from the side of humanity, you have no reason to love this person, he's terrible. So at least there's this one spark inside of him that he's a Jew. So that's the only redeeming factor that he has as a Jew. So therefore you should overlook all of your attitudes to him and all the things that he did to you. And you should try to find love. You should love the other. Loving means appreciating. In other words, trying to find something good in him and trying to find excuses for all the bad things that he does, like you do to yourself. All right, we'll talk about this, God willing, tomorrow. Hope to see everybody tomorrow at 8:15. Like I said, I have a doubt. You'll tune in and you'll see. If you don't see a class, then you know that I made the class and that you can upload it. Have a good day with Mashiach now. And watch it on the Shalom.